The locker room was a haze of steam and sweat, the air thick with the sharp tang of chlorine and the echo of slamming metal doors. I stood frozen, my heart hammering so loud I swore it could drown out the chatter of the swim team. Then Ethan, my best friend since we were kids chasing fireflies in Ohio backyards, looked at me with eyes that held a secret too heavy for words, and everything changed. We'd been inseparable for years, Ethan and I, two small-town boys navigating the suffocating halls of Jefferson High. He was the golden boy, broad shoulders, easy grin, the kind of guy who could charm anyone without trying. I was the quieter one, always trailing in his orbit, content to bask in his light. But that day, in the dim glow of the locker room, something shifted. His hand brushed mine as he tossed me a towel, and the touch lingered, a deliberate, electropause that sent my pulse spiraling. His eyes locked on mine, and for a moment, the world shrank to just us, the air crackling with something unspoken. I'd always known I was different. Growing up in a place like Jefferson, where pickup trucks and church potlucks defined life, I buried that truth deep. Being gay wasn't just a secret here. It was a sin whispered about in hushed tones. Ethan, though, he was my safe harbor, the one person who made me feel like I could breathe. We'd spent countless nights sprawled on his bedroom floor, talking about everything from comic books to our dreams of escaping this town. But lately, I caught myself noticing things. The way his laugh lit up his face, the curve of his jaw when he shaved, the way his presence made my chest ache. I told myself it was nothing, just friendship, until that moment in the locker room. "Luke," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper as the last of our teammates filed out. "Can we talk?" The words were simple, but they carried a weight that made my stomach twist. I nodded, unable to speak, and followed him to the far corner of the room, where the lockers stood like silent sentinels. He leaned against one, his swim trunks clinging to his thighs, his damp hair curling at the edges. I tried to focus on his face, but my eyes kept drifting to the bead of water sliding down his collarbone. "I've been thinking about you," he said, and my breath caught. Not just as a friend. His words hung there, raw and unguarded, and I felt the ground tilt beneath me. Ethan, the guy who'd dated half the cheerleading squad, who'd never so much as hinted at this, was he saying what I thought? My mind raced, torn between hope and terror. This was Jefferson. This was us. If anyone found out, it wouldn't just be whispers, it'd be a wildfire. Before I could respond, he stepped closer, his hand grazing my arm. The touch was soft but deliberate, like he was testing the waters of a truth neither of us had dared to name. "I know it's crazy," he murmured, his voice trembling now, "but I can't stop feeling this. Tell me I'm not alone." His eyes searched mine, desperate, and I saw it. The same fear, the same longing I'd carried for years. My mouth went dry, and every instinct screamed to run, to protect the fragile life we'd built here. But my heart, traitor that it was, kept me rooted. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. It was the most honest thing I'd ever said. Ethan's face softened, and for a moment, I thought he'd pull back, laugh it off like he always did when things got too real. But instead, he leaned in, his forehead resting against mine, our breaths mingling in the humid air. "Me too," he said, "but I'm more scared of losing you." The words broke something in me, a dam I'd built to keep my feelings locked away. I wanted to kiss him, to close the distance and let the world fall away. But the clang of a locker door in the distance snapped us apart, our eyes darting toward the sound. Coach's voice echoed from the hallway, calling for stragglers. Ethan grabbed his bag, his expression a mix of resolve and panic. "Meet me at the lake tonight," he said, his voice urgent. "We need to figure this out." I nodded, my heart pounding as he slipped away, leaving me alone with the weight of his confession. The locker room felt too small, too loud, like it was closing in. I grabbed my things and bolted, the cool evening air hitting my face as I stepped outside. The lake, our spot, where we'd skipped stones and dreamed of bigger lives. Tonight, It would be something else, a place where secrets could either save us or destroy us. As I walked home, the streets of Jefferson felt different, like they were watching me. The neat lawns, the American flags flapping in the breeze, the distant hum of a lawnmower. It all felt like a facade, hiding the truth I'd only just begun to face. Ethan's words echoed in my mind, each one a spark that set my nerves alight. I was trembling, not just with fear, but with something else, desire, raw and unyielding, for the one person I never thought I could have. By the time I reached my house, the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in shades of fire. I stood in my driveway, staring at the lake in the distance, its surface glinting like a promise. Tonight, I'd meet Ethan there. Tonight, we'd face whatever this was together, or we'd lose everything. The lake was a mirror of stars by the time I got there, my sneakers crunching on the gravel path. My heart hadn't stopped racing since the locker room, Ethan's words looping in my head like a song I couldn't shake. I spotted him on the dock, his silhouette sharp against the water, and for a second, I couldn't move. Fear and longing locked me in place. He turned as I approached, his face half lit by the moon, and I saw it again. That mix of courage and vulnerability that made my chest ache. "You came," he said, his voice soft but steady, like he'd been holding his breath. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, and sat beside him, our shoulders brushing. The dock creaked under our weight, the only sound besides the gentle lap of water and the crickets humming in the reeds. "I didn't plan this," Ethan started, staring out at the lake. "I didn't even know what this was until God. Luke, it's been building for months." He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture so familiar it hurt. "Every time we're together, I feel it, this pull. Like I'm supposed to be closer to you than I am." His words were raw, slicing through the quiet night, and I felt them lodge somewhere deep inside me. I wanted to tell him I'd felt it too, that I'd spent years shoving it down, terrified of what it meant. But instead, I said, "What happens if someone finds out?" My voice cracked, betraying the panic I tried to hide. Jefferson wasn't kind to people like us. I'd heard the slurs tossed around at school, seen the way Pastor Mike's sermons turned fire and brimstone when certain lifestyles came up. Ethan's popularity might shield him, but me? I'd be a target. He turned to me, his eyes fierce. "I don't care about them. I care about you." His hand found mine, fingers intertwining, and the warmth of his skin sent a shiver through me. It was the first time we'd ever touched like this, openly, intentionally, and it felt like a door swinging wide, revealing a world I'd only dreamed of. "I've been lying to myself for too long," he said, "pretending I could keep dating girls, keep playing the part. But it's you, Luke. It's always been you." The confession stole my breath. I wanted to believe him, to let myself fall into this moment, but the weight of our town pressed down on me. "Ethan, if we do this, it's not just us. It's your family, my mom, the whole damn school. They'll tear us apart." My voice trembled, but I couldn't stop. I've seen what happens to guys like us here. They don't just whisper, they destroy. He squeezed my hand, his grip firm. "Then we'll be careful. We'll figure it out. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek, and my resolve crumbled. I closed my eyes, letting the world narrow to the heat of his presence, the steady rhythm of his breathing. When his lips brushed mine, tentative at first, then deeper, it was like a spark igniting a fire I'd spent years trying to smother. The kiss was everything, soft, desperate, electric. It was the answer to every question I'd never dared ask. When we pulled apart, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Ethan's eyes were wide, like he was seeing me for the first time. "I'm not letting you go," he whispered, and the promise in his voice made me want to believe we could survive this. But the moment shattered when headlights swept across the lake, tires crunching on the gravel path. We sprang apart, my pulse spiking as a truck pulled up nearby. Ethan grabbed my arm, pulling me into the shadows of the reeds. "It's probably just kids," he whispered, but his voice was tense. We crouched there, hearts racing, as voices carried over the water. Loud, male, familiar. It was Jake and his crew, guys from the swim team, their laughter cutting through the night. They didn't see us, but their presence was a cold reminder of what we were risking. Ethan's hand stayed on my arm, grounding me, but I could feel his fear mirroring mine. When the truck finally roared off, we stayed hidden, the weight of the close call settling over us. "We can't do this here," I said, my voice barely audible. "Not out in the open." Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. "My dad's got that old cabin in the woods, the one we used to mess around in as kids. No one goes there anymore. We can meet there, just us." His eyes searched mine, pleading. "Say you'll come, Luke. Please." I wanted to say no, to protect us both from the fallout I knew was coming. But the memory of his kiss, the way it had set every nerve alight, made it impossible. "Okay," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "Tomorrow night." As we parted ways, the lake glittering behind us, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. Ethan had opened a door I couldn't close, and every step forward was a leap into the unknown. I walked home under a sky full of stars, my lips still tingling, my heart torn between exhilaration and dread. Tomorrow, we'd be alone. Tomorrow, we'd see if this thing between us could survive the world we lived in. The cabin smelled of pine and dust, a forgotten relic tucked deep in the Ohio woods. Moonlight filtered through the cracked windows, casting shadows across the worn floorboards where Ethan and I stood, facing each other like we were about to jump off a ledge. Last night's kiss at the lake had changed everything, and now, in this quiet space, the air felt charged with possibility and danger. Ethan shut the door behind us, the click loud in the silence. "No one's been here in years," he said, his voice low, like he was afraid to break the spell. He stepped closer, his flannel shirt brushing against my arm, and I could feel the heat radiating off him. My heart was a drumbeat, steady but loud, as I tried to hold on to the courage I'd felt last night. "You sure about this?" I asked, my voice betraying the fear I couldn't shake. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he cupped my face in his hands, his thumbs brushing my jaw, and kissed me. This wasn't tentative like the lake. It was hungry, urgent, like he'd been holding back for years. I melted into it, my hands finding his waist, pulling him closer until there was no space left between us. The world outside, the town, the rules, the judgment, disappeared, leaving only the heat of his mouth, the press of his body, the truth we'd both been running from. When we broke apart, gasping, Ethan's forehead pressed against mine. "I wanted this for so long," he whispered, his voice raw. I was too scared to admit it, even to myself. His honesty cracked something open in me, and I told him everything. How I'd loved him since we were 14, how I'd memorized the way he laughed, how I'd lain awake at night hating myself for it. He listened, his eyes soft, and when I finished, he kissed me again, slower this time, like he was memorizing me too. We sank onto an old blanket Ethan had spread on the floor, the wood creaking beneath us. The cabin was our sanctuary, a place where Jefferson's rules couldn't reach. We talked for hours, our voices weaving through the dark, about our fears, our dreams, the lives we wanted beyond this town. Ethan wanted to study architecture, to build things that lasted. I wanted to write, to tell stories that mattered. We painted a future together, one where we could be us, not the versions this town demanded. But reality crept in with the dawn. My phone buzzed, a text from my mom asking where I'd been. I ignored it, but the spell was broken. Ethan's face tightened as he checked his own phone, his dad, asking why he wasn't home. "They're starting to notice," he said, his voice heavy. "We have to be smarter about this." I nodded, but the weight of it settled in my chest. Sneaking around wasn't just exhausting. It was a reminder that what we had was fragile, a flame that could be snuffed out by a single careless moment. The next day at school, the world felt sharper, more dangerous. I caught Ethan's eye across the cafeteria, and he gave me a small, secret smile that made my heart lurch. But then Jake, the swim team captain, slapped Ethan's shoulder, joking about some party, and I saw the mask slip back into place. Ethan laughed, played along, but his eyes flickered to me, and I knew he was as trapped as I was. We were living a double life now, stealing moments in the cabin while pretending nothing had changed. That afternoon, I overheard Jake and his crew in the hallway, their voices low but vicious. "You see how Luke's always hanging around Ethan?" Jake said, his tone laced with suspicion. "Kinda weird, right?" My stomach dropped. I ducked into a classroom, my hands shaking as I leaned against the wall. They hadn't seen us, but they were watching. Jefferson had eyes everywhere, and we were running out of places to hide. That night, back at the cabin, I told Ethan what I'd heard. His face paled, but he pulled me close, his arms a shield against the world. "We'll be okay," he said, but his voice wavered. "We just have to hold on until graduation. Then we're out of here." I wanted to believe him, but the fear was a living thing now, clawing at the edges of our stolen moments. Still, I kissed him, pouring everything into it. Hope, love, defiance. If this was all we had, I'd fight for every second. As we lay there, tangled in the blanket, the moonlight painting his face in silver, I felt a surge of something fierce. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about proving we could exist, that our love wasn't something to be ashamed of. But the world outside was waiting, and I knew it wouldn't let us go without a fight. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk, every moment with Ethan a stolen treasure, every glance at school a calculated risk. The cabin became our haven, where we could shed the masks we wore for Jefferson. But the town was closing in, its whispers growing louder, and I could feel the noose tightening around us. One night, as we lay in the cabin, Ethan's head resting on my chest, he told me about his dad, a retired Marine who saw the world in black and white. "If he finds out," Ethan said, his voice barely audible, "he'll never look at me the same." I held him tighter, my own fears echoing his. My mom was different. She'd always been kind, but she was devout, her Bible worn from years of reading. I didn't know if her love for me could survive this truth. At school, the tension was palpable. Jake and his crew were relentless, their comments sharper, their eyes always on us. One day, in the locker room, Jake cornered me. "You and Ethan are real close, huh?" he said, his smile cold. "People are starting to talk." My blood ran cold, but I forced a laugh, muttering something about being best friends. He didn't buy it. I could see it in his eyes, but he let it go for now. That night, I told Ethan we had to stop meeting at the cabin. "It's too risky," I said, my voice breaking. "If Jake knows, it's over." Ethan's face hardened, and he grabbed my hand. "I'm not giving this up," he said fiercely. "I'm not giving you up." His defiance lit something in me, but it also terrified me. He was willing to burn it all down for us, but I wasn't sure I could. The breaking point came at the homecoming game. The stands were packed, the air electric with cheers and the scent of popcorn. Ethan and I sat together, careful to keep our distance, but I could feel his warmth beside me, a pull I couldn't resist. During halftime, he leaned close, whispering, "Meet me behind the bleachers." My heart raced, but I nodded, unable to say no to him. Under the bleachers, hidden by shadows and the roar of the crowd, we kissed, desperate and reckless. It was a moment of pure defiance, a middle finger to the town that wanted to crush us. But when we pulled apart, I saw a figure in the distance. Jake, his phone raised, the flash of a camera cutting through the dark. My stomach plummeted. "Ethan," I hissed, but he'd seen it too. His face went white, and for the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. We bolted, weaving through the crowd, but the damage was done. By Monday, the photo was everywhere, blurry but unmistakable, passed around in group chats, whispered about in the halls. Ethan and I were called to the principal's office, where Mr. Daniels, a stern man with a cross on his desk, looked at us like we were criminals. "This kind of behavior," he said, "has no place at Jefferson High." My mom was there, her face pale, her hands clutching her purse. Ethan's dad stood like a statue, his jaw clenched, refusing to meet Ethan's eyes. They suspended us for a week, but the real punishment was the town. The whispers turned to shouts, slurs spray-painted on my locker, notes slipped into Ethan's bag. My mom cried when I got home, asking why I hadn't told her, why I'd chosen this path. I wanted to scream that it wasn't a choice, that loving Ethan was as natural as breathing, but the words wouldn't come. Ethan's dad was worse. He kicked him out, telling him to fix himself or not come back. We met at the cabin that night, both of us broken, clinging to each other like the world was ending. "I'm not ashamed of you," Ethan said, his voice fierce despite the tears in his eyes. "I'm not ashamed of us." I kissed him, tasting salt and desperation, and made a decision. We couldn't stay here, not like this. "Let's leave," I said. "After graduation, we'll go somewhere new, somewhere we can be us." Ethan nodded, his grip on me tightening. "Together," he said, and it was a vow. We had 3 months until graduation, 3 months to survive Jefferson's wrath. But in that moment, wrapped in each other's arms, I believed we could do it. Love wasn't just a feeling, it was a fight, and we were ready. The final months of senior year were a gauntlet, each day a battle to keep our heads above water. Ethan moved in with his aunt, a quiet woman who didn't ask questions, while I faced my mom's tearful prayers and the town's relentless judgment. But we held on, meeting in secret, our love a quiet rebellion against a world that wanted to erase us. School was a minefield. The photo had made us pariahs. Ethan's teammates shunned him, and my locker became a canvas for hate. But there were glimmers of hope. Ms. Harper, our English teacher, pulled me aside one day, her eyes kind. "You're not alone," she said, slipping me a pamphlet for a youth support group in Columbus. "There's a world beyond Jefferson." Her words were a lifeline, a reminder that we weren't fighting for nothing. Ethan and I started planning. We'd moved to Chicago after graduation, big enough to disappear, small enough to feel like home. We saved every penny, Ethan from his lifeguard job, me from tutoring. The cabin became our war room, where we mapped out a future that felt like a dream. We'd get an apartment, go to college, live openly. Each plan was a brick in the wall we were building against the hate. But Jefferson wasn't done with us. The night before graduation, Jake and his crew ambushed Ethan outside the diner where he worked. They didn't touch him, just surrounded him, their words cutting deeper than fists. "Freak," they called him, their voices loud enough for the whole street to hear. I found him later, sitting by the lake, his face bruised not by punches but by shame. I sat beside him, my hand finding his, and we didn't speak. We didn't need to. Our silence was a promise. We'd survive this, together. Graduation day was surreal, the auditorium buzzing with excitement while Ethan and I sat apart, avoiding eyes. When my name was called, I crossed the stage, my diploma a ticket out. Ethan's smile from the crowd was my anchor. That night, we met at the lake one last time, the dock where it all began. "We made it," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I kissed him, soft and slow, under a sky bursting with stars. "We're free," I whispered, and for the first time I believed it. We left Jefferson the next morning, our bags packed in my beat-up sedan, the road stretching out like a promise. Chicago was a new world, vibrant, chaotic, alive. We found a tiny apartment, its walls thin but ours. The first night, as we lay in our new bed, Ethan's arms around me, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace. We weren't hiding anymore. We were living. Years later, I'd look back on Jefferson and feel a strange gratitude. The town had tried to break us, but it made us stronger. Ethan became an architect, his buildings rising like monuments to our resilience. I wrote stories, some about us, some about others who'd fought for their truth. We built a life, not perfect, but ours, filled with love that didn't tremble in the shadows. The secret that started in a locker room, that left me trembling with desire, became the foundation of everything we were. It wasn't just a love story. It was a victory, a testament to the power of holding on, of choosing each other against all odds. And every time I looked at Ethan, I knew we'd won.